We are business advisors, taxation consultants, and strategists that specialise in setting up businesses. We understand the client and give them the very best customised advice and strategies to achieve their goals. Visit our website dkpco.com.au or give us a call today on 03 9023 9370. Fast, proactive, personal. That's DKP & Co Chartered Accountants.
Are you a professional optimised business? Time to look at Northern Peugeot Bandura to further professionalise your fleet with their updated commercial van range. The team at Northern Peugeot Bandura can help customise your fleet to your business needs. Stock arriving now, so secure your van and beat the rush before the end of financial year madness. Visit northernpeugeot.com.au or call 9119 9008. T&Cs apply.
Are you looking to change your destiny in life? Be your own boss? Start your own business? If you are, you need people who understand your needs and are committed to helping you make it happen. At DKP & Co Chartered Accountants, we are more than just accountants. We are business advisors, taxation consultants, and strategists that specialise in setting up businesses. We understand the client and give them the very best customised advice and strategies to achieve their goals. Visit our website dkpco.com.au or give us a call today on 03 9023 9370. Fast, proactive, personal. That's DKP & Co Chartered Accountants.
Maloney takes, and it's in! It's Ben Watson! It's Ben Watson for Wigan Athletic! They've surely won the FA Cup! For Dave Whelan, for Roberto Martinez! You just cannot write scripts like this!
You're listening to the State of Our Football Nation on FNR. Good to have the Northern Motor Group as sponsors for another year. Fantastic to have them on board. A reminder that we've got some terrific stories and great guests over the next hour. Gary Cole, former Socceroo coach. He's done it all, sports administrator. What hasn't he done in the game? He'll be joining us very, very shortly. We want to talk to him about the transition, and I'm not talking about the transition from one end of the field to the other, but that transition from when you're a start player and you want to stay in the game, but you have to move or evolve, and the transition is to manager or coach. So that'll be interesting. Pokuah Frimpong, as usual, is my co-anchor. She's been doing it magnificently the last 2 weeks while I've been on assignment in the wilds of Queensland. How did you cope without having me as your anchor on the side?
It was very different. It was strange to have you up in Queensland. And George, to be honest, I can sense from you that you didn't love Queensland as much and you missed Melbourne a lot. That's what I can sense.
Oh, you're absolutely right.
That's what I can sense.
It's a very different feel when you're in the studio in Docklands.
Yeah.
Or you're travelling around Australia and thinking to yourself, geez, I better confirm that my Zoom link is going to work and that Pokuah will talk to me.
No.
Let me in. No, she does that occasionally.
You're fine.
No, we're going to talk football. There's so many stories. Before we go into in depth and catch up with Gary Cole, I want to look at you and say to you, all right, you win. We've lost Antonio Conte. Arsenal continues to fly at the top of the English Premier League. We've had international football. There's been some outstanding games played. An outstanding goal by a young guy called Saka. I'd like to sack him, but no, he just continues to grow from strength to strength, which is just a joy when you remember the turmoil that he went through after missing a penalty in the Euros. What was it, a year ago? A little bit more than that?
Just a little bit over a year
So
ago.
he's grown as a young man. He's grown as a footballer. So experience is a wonderful thing. We've had some international experience watching some younger Socceroos put their hands up and wanting to play in a couple of games against Ecuador. how good are the Ecuadorians?
Yeah.
And I'm not degrading Australia's effort. I've loved what I've seen from there, but the preciseness, the movement, the vertical attacking, just really good stuff.
Yeah, no, I think watching especially the second game and watching Ecuador play, they play some really, really beautiful football. Their link-up play is really nice, and they got some really talented players. And
Would you like to have been calling that game?
It would have been nice. It would have been nice, but no, Robbie Thompson did a fantastic job.
No, I'm not having a go at Robbie. I'm just asking you, as a young professional commentator, would you have loved to have been just next to Robbie saying, no worries?
No, of course. You know, it's always hope to be calling the biggest and the best games, but I will get there one day, and
you certainly will. What did you make of the two games? One played in Sydney, one played in Melbourne. What did you make of those two games?
I thought the Socceroos, I think the first game was probably their better of the two.
Yep.
But I think it was a pretty nice and even contest in the balance of
I don't think the scores are reflective.
I don't think it was like a crazy either way, but no, I thought there was really good passages of play, and I think it's important that we build on the momentum from the World Cup. And for Ecuador, they really need to get themselves into really good rhythm, because obviously they've got the points deducted heading into the next World Cup, so that will be a thing they've got to deal with. But I thought they were really entertaining games, and that's all I want from international football when there aren't major trophies at stake, just really competitive games.
Pokuah Frimpong is my co-anchor on State of Our Football Nation on FNR. And if you haven't joined us before, this is what we do every Thursday. We get a chance to talk about all manner of things, all things that affect the game, and different things like, for example, why wasn't it played at Amy Park in Melbourne?
Yeah, that was my first question, George. When I was watching the game, and
nearly 28,000 people rocked up to Marvel,
and I saw the crowd. I was like, oh, that looks like around 25,000 people.
That would have been capacity almost at Amy,
and it would have been really, really loud.
And it would have been buzzing.
It would have been really, really loud, and the atmosphere would have been great. So it was weird to see that it wasn't at Amy.
Yep.
I'm not quite sure what the reason.
Well,
behind
my understanding is, and Peter Filopoulos from Football Australia was very quick to tweet that, hey, listen, the grounds were not made available to us. We didn't have access, and that sort of kind of surprises me. But again, I've been a long time visitor to Amy Park, and I know that not always is it available for football, because there are concerts galore, there are monster car, competitions there. So again, this is the state of of play now. Modern sporting grounds, they're not just for football; they're there for business. Yeah, and clearly, the business came first, football came second.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not quite sure what was happening at Amy, but obviously, I have no doubt the Football Australia tried their hardest, because they would have probably projected the numbers of the amount of people, and above 30,000 would have been extremely. It would have been extremely optimistic, and they would have hoped to completely fill out Marvel. But on a weeknight, it's a little bit more difficult, and I think Amy would have most likely been their first preference to at least fill it out. And
But the good news is that Amy is back as a football venue this week.
Exactly.
The Newcastle Jets up against the Melbourne City.
Yep.
And City can't afford to be sitting back.
No,
They've got to be scoring goals and winning games.
It's actually going to be some really great football at Amy all weekend, because on Sunday, Melbourne City are taking on Canberra there, and that's the
double header again, isn't it?
So that's a decider for in the dub, at least for the decider for the top four.
Now there were a couple of classic contests. Melbourne City's women's side lost in a 7-goal thriller.
Yes.
What in heaven's name is going on?
Melbourne City.
Are they leaking at the back? Because you can't say they're not potent. They've scored 3 goals.
They were bleaky, but they were potent up front. But actually, George, if you look at the amount of shots they had about, I think, over 20-something shots. And compared to Perth's, and Perth's deep black were never really.
So what's going on?
I think that Melbourne City, they've got a really strong starting 11, and
they got the depth.
I think their squad depth is not as great as it used to be, and I think certain players are playing in different positions, and it worked really well at the start of the season, and it's kind of fallen away because they've got themselves into this top 4 battle to make finals where they weren't really there for majority of the season. So I think they made some critical errors defensively and allowed Perth to win that game. But Perth also really needed to win that game, and they weren't going to rest on their laurels. So it's all to play for on Sunday. This final weekend of the dub is going to be amazing, so everybody should definitely check it out.
You mentioned Perth Glory, and Perth Glory are saying goodbye to one of their long-time custodians. Their goalkeeper for, 150, 160 games is stepping away. He's calling it an end to his career. I remember him as a young goalkeeper who got caught out at Amy Park when a Dutch superstar by the name of Orlando Engelaar just hit the ball from about 56 metres.
I think I've seen Lockie. I think Lockie showed me that video.
Yeah. It's the sort of goal that Gary Cole would have scored in his heyday, because he didn't score too many with his head, but he would crash the ball into the back of the net given any opportunity. And I'm talking about the Perth goalkeeper whose name at this precise moment escapes me.
I'll find out.
And I can tell you what makes it even more galling. I remember his father was a superstar for St George Rugby League Club, played for Australia. He was a lock forward. And here I am thinking to myself, why can I not prise open my brain?
Liam Reedy?
Liam Reddy.
Reddy, that's it.
Superstar.
Okay.
Yeah, no, he's been fantastic. What a career he's given. What a legacy he will leave. He's played at just about every football club, and that's not easy to do.
Sydney FC, Wellington.
Yep, keep reading them out.
Central Coast Mariners, Western Sydney Wanderers, Perth was clearly his longest stint.
Yep.
And he started his career all the way back with Parramatta Power.
The Parramatta Power. And I think the coach of the Parramatta Power might have been a guy called Nick... hang on a minute. I'm having one of those fabulous, little interludes right now where the name's Nikolakopoulos. No, it wasn't Nikolakopoulos. Thodorakopoulos. There you go. Some of these moments. Gary Cole never suffers from those. Let's go and find him. Gary, welcome to Football Nation Radio. I notice you're scratching your head there. You're probably feeling just like me and thinking, he's not going to ask me any names, is he?
Sorry, George. I've had a few computer challenges just here, so I couldn't get in on my laptop, so I'm now on my phone.
Fantastic. By the way, we need to say congratulations to Gary Cole on another. He's one of these super excitable fathers. His daughter, or one of his daughters, is a super successful basketball player, and she missed the grand final, or winning the grand final, by how many points, Gary?
Good question, George. I can't remember. It was the best 3 grand final series. They lost the first one in Towns, but then narrowly lost the second one in Melbourne last Wednesday.
Yeah. You were doing the Daniel Andrews defence. I can't recall.
Yeah. She scored 26 points. I can recall how many Beck scored a new WNBL record for points scored in a final series. So,
see Pokuah? How proud the dad is.
He remembers her stats, and that's the most important.
He knows the stats because he knows that mum won't let him get home, won't let him get in. Gary, thank you for joining us today. It's an opportunity for us to talk a little bit outside the normal football talk. We know that you've had a tremendous role over the last couple of years with helping, coaches transition and become better coaches. You've been doing a series of podcasts which have been terrific, giving insight to people and to those who want to extend their careers in the game and move from player to either manager or coach. How difficult a journey is it, and how did you find it making the transition from player, active player, key player, to suddenly the man at the other end, where you have to put up the names each and every week on the list, and you have to put up with all the egos and all the demons that run around in every dressing room that we've ever visited and ever been a part of?
Yeah, there's a few good questions in there, George.
Let's dig them out.
I'll do my best.
Yeah, no,
I'll do my best to get
you know
through
what I'm
them.
saying. You know what I'm saying.
The transition from one to the other is key in all this, and it isn't the system. It's like everyone's player journey, their coaching journey differs. So how you transition can have a huge impact on how that goes.
Yep.
So for me, for instance, I finished playing and essentially was asked to apply for an assistant coaching job at the AIS, where Dr. Ron Smith was the new head coach. He wanted someone that played for the Socceroos, had a teaching background, which I did because I'd had 10 years as a primary school teacher here in Melbourne. And up I went. And my transition was fantastic. I went from playing in the old NSL, had a couple of years prior to that, stopped playing for the Socceroos, sort of determined that coaching was going to be my future because I was a teacher by trade, and by that stage I'd learned that I love teaching human beings and helping them to get better. So I was fortunate enough to go to the AIS, work with some of the best young male footballers in the country, with arguably one of the best coach and player educators in the country, Dr. Ron Smith. So I had this wonderful apprenticeship of being an assistant coach in a very safe environment where even though we did win most of the time, the emphasis was on player development. It wasn't on winning games of football, and whether my role was determined as successful or not wasn't based on whether we won on the weekend or not. So that was a very safe place. Ron constantly challenged me. He said, "Hey, guys, go and have a look at if you go into the library, and this will give this away, go into the library, there's a whole bunch of videos," if people can remember what a video was. And
Pokuah's looking at me kind of funny.
Yeah, that's right. So get out the Sony Betamax and plug in and watch the what was it? Was it 80, 74, 78, 82 World Cup?
Yep, the one in Spain.
Yeah, watch the strikers and watch these strikers and watch the best strikers in the world and how they spend most of their time facing forward.
Yes, Paolo Rossi. Yeah.
Back to goal striker. I was blown away that I'd played my whole career and hadn't realised that the best strikers in the world, and clearly I didn't fit into that category, were spending most of the game facing forwards where they could run forwards, move forwards. And so Ron continually challenged me that way. So that was where my transition happened. And when I moved back to Melbourne at the end of that, I was fortunate enough to go then into a head coaching role at Heidelberg. If I can stay on that theme of that safe transition, one of our fantastically talented young coaches, Paddy Kisnorbo, is now coaching in the French second division.
Yeah.
And on the steepest learning curve of his life right now, and I'll come back to that in a minute. But this is Paddy's journey. Again, played as a professional in Europe, came back, finished his playing career at Melbourne City, as you're well aware.
Yep.
And then as he was coming to the end of that, started to do his coaching licenses, Melbourne City gave him an opportunity, I think in the first instance,
with the
to be an
women's
assistant coach. With the women's team,
that's right, yeah.
Then a head coach with the women's team, then an assistant coach in the men's team, then the lead assistant coach in the men's team, and finally gave him the head coaching gig in the first team. Now, he was well educated in the City way of playing and training for football, had lots of years to develop his craft on the grass, and then grew into that system and was fantastically successful all the way through, because of the quality of the Melbourne City programs for men and women, and it hardly lost the game. And I say that because he's now gone to France I can't remember the name of the team off the top of my head.
It's Troyes. Yeah.
A club owned by the City Group.
Correct.
Who were languishing down the bottom, and Paddy went in and they've continued. He's had some successes, but they've also lost games. And what I finally learned, George, is that coaches normally learn more when they're losing than when they're winning. The unfortunate side of that, of course, is if you learn too much by losing too many games, you're out of work and you're looking for a new one.
Can I just pause you? Can I just pause you there for a moment, because it brings me to a point, and Pokuah will remember this. Oh, she may not. There was an infamous interview on SBS which featured Craig Foster, the late Les Murray, and a young boy who had been doing some terrific work for the young Socceroos by the name of Ange Postecoglou. And the sum of that particular interview, the summation, if I can draw from it, is that they were saying to him, listen, your record of winning hasn't been too good. There was no talk about how well are we developing players. It was all about you're not getting the results. So can we just go back for a moment and pause and reflect on that interview, and then fast forward to where we saw Ange Postecoglou leave that particular moment, make up his mind that from that moment on he would not be anybody else's man, but he would be his man. And then we saw a wonderful discovery with his role at Brisbane Roar. We saw him go in there, completely turn around a program that was wilting, and proceed to create a mini dynasty before he moved back into Melbourne and to Victory, where he again showed his worth. And as we've seen, he's gone to Japan and been a huge success. And now at Celtic, every other day when there's a vacancy, everyone's talking about, I think Ange Postecoglou should put his hand up. So if we can use just those two examples and go back and reflect how sometimes we in the media don't look at it the right way when we're assessing a coach. Do you know what I mean? There's sometimes all we look at is they're not getting the results. It's a results-driven business. Damn it, and we need to move on. How hard must it be to keep your head, to have faith in your beliefs and your belief structure, and then take that into a dressing room with a group of men or in a group of women, if you're talking the women's competition, and apply your trade, which is imparting information and giving them confidence to play.
Yeah, look, it's absolutely incredibly difficult. The truth is, the media, the media writes about football at the pointy end of the game. It rarely writes about the grassroots game, and at grassroots football can be very, very different. Kids playing, and the sole purpose, hopefully for most coaches at community clubs, is that all the kids are having fun, because we know if they have some fun with their friends, they're really enjoying going out, training one night a week, having a game. They've got a chance of loving football for life, like us, and play, coach, maybe referee, maybe be in a club administrator, and then they can educate their own kids, and that cycle continues. But at the pointy end, it's very unusual for a coach in the professional arena to be in a situation where winning doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Even Ange, even though Ange was working in the with a young Socceroos. I can't remember, was it the Joes or the young Socceroos?
I think it was the Joes.
17 or 20.
Is that the one where he had that discussion with Craig Foster?
Yes, with Craig Foster, that's right.
Which was arguably the most horrible setup in the history of Australian football. It was disgraceful what went on on TV.
I was disappointed from 3 or 4 different levels, because I knew all the players, I knew all the people in it, and I kept thinking, why are they doing this? But anyway, that's another time, another place. But continue, please.
The situation for Ange was that he'd had that success with South Melbourne and been identified as someone that was on this pathway to getting better, and he was going to be a great elite coach. And he had a fantastic opportunity with our junior national teams. Junior national teams, different kettle of fish. Not like me at the AIS, where our goal was clear. It was written down. It was about developing players. Did we want to win? Yes, but the AIS weren't, we weren't playing in any leagues to win. We were playing at the highest level of competition where we could, but it was about developing the athletes individually and collectively. And it was about also the coaches getting an opportunity to grow. So that's one environment. Ange had the luxury, if you like, of that transition. And if I forget, because I'll tend to wander around here, bring me back to Ange's start in coaching at South Melbourne, because I think that's really interesting to this as well. But he goes into that national team setup, and the expectation is winning games of football, qualifying for World Cups, qualifying for, well, it wouldn't have been an Asian Cup then. He would have gone in, cleaned up Oceania, because that's what we did in those days, and then got on, and we didn't qualify for a World Cup. Or if we did qualify for a World Cup, we didn't get out of the group stage. And we got used to, getting into the world, qualifying for the World Cups, and then doing well in those earlier days. But part of that was that my honest opinion is that the rest of Asia started to invest a lot more into player and coach development, and we sort of sat in our hands. So it's not to be unexpected that a coach coaching a national team or any team at the pointy end of football is going to be criticised if they don't win continually, unless, and this is a big unless, and I don't know that this happens too often, George, but the owner, the board, the chairman says, you know what, Ange, George, Gary, Mary, Martha, whatever the coach is, we understand that we can't invest in this club this year. We're going to go with the kids. We want to develop some kids. So for us, if you can avoid relegation, then we understand we're not going to win it this year.
He's telling us the Spurs story.
Yeah, he is.
This is the thing that makes me cry.
He is.
Yeah.
Pokuah's got a question for you, Gary.
Gary, hearing you talk about, obviously your transition from player to the coaching room, what do you think some of the mistakes that players make, or the people guiding those players into the next step of coaching they kind of make? Is it going for too big of a job too early on, or is it not going for a big enough job? What do you think some of the hurdles that they have to overcome, and some of the mistakes they kind of make sometimes? Yeah,
well, the biggest one is probably, even if you go from playing into assistant coaching, that step up from assistant coaching into head coach, the truth is you just don't know what you don't know. You think you know, you think as a player, we're all confident players. We strut around once you've had some experience. We all think we know what playing's about. We all think as a consequence of that, we seriously believe what the coach should be doing because we can tell him what he's doing right and what he's not doing right. So we come into it. But the truth is when you get to sit in the hot seat, you don't know what you don't know. And early on, you're on the steepest learning experience of your life. And part of the challenge can be, and I think maybe John Aloisi found this out, because essentially he finished playing and got a coaching gig in the A-League at Brisbane, and he knows a lot about the game. He was a qualified coach, but he hadn't had years of experience out on the pitch coaching players and then coaching games and that game management at the end of it. And again, if you flip that back to Paddy Kisnorbo, one, he was I'm going to say fortunate, because he was in that Manchester City club environment, the City Group environment, but he went from being an assistant coach with the women's team to a head coach in the women's team to an assistant coach in the men's team to a head coach in the men's team. And I think that was sort of in a period of 6 years. So by the time he gets there, he's had wonderful experience. He's put on hundreds of, maybe even thousands of coaching sessions for players. He started to learn what works and what doesn't work. And for me, one of the key things is what you achieved as a player, what you knew as a player, actually has no relevance to how successful you're going to be as a coach. One of George's idols, I know because he's a South Melbourne man, was Alan Davison.
Correct.
Davo, what a fantastic player he was.
Super player.
In the old NSL, went overseas.
Nottingham Forest.
Socceroos, and came back. But Alan, when he went into coaching, found it really difficult because he wanted it and expected the players could all do what he did.
Jeez.
And he couldn't.
You touched on something a little earlier when you mentioned Johnny Aloisi. I remember when Johnny Aloisi was given the reins at Melbourne Heart, the old Melbourne Heart, which morphed and became City. And for 14 weeks of his coaching career, he had brought in Jonathan Hermano and Orlando Engelar, two very fine players. Both of them were injured. And for 14 weeks of his 15-week stint as the coach, he didn't have access to those two key players. He gets sacked, and the next week, Johnny von Schip comes back. Both players are available. Who makes the difference in both games? Jonathan Hermano with a goal and Orlando Engelar. So sometimes you've got to be lucky as well as being good. No, you've got to be lucky. And that's another thing that fascinates me. But coming back to Pokuah's question for you, when you're going through that really tough time, and you would have had those moments too in your very many roles in coaching, who helps you when your confidence is at its lowest ebb, your players are feeling the pinch, and you're looking for inspiration? Who was the one, or did you have a number of mentors that you could reach out to and talk to?
No. For me, there was only ever one in the coaching realm, and that was Dr. Ron Smith. And he had that great gift, still has that great gift of making the complex simple, and I believe the best coaches have that. Yeah. Ange, if you listen to what Harry Gill says about Ange, he speaks in very simple terms to people. He don't get me wrong, he buys in good players that he likes the way they play, and he's able to help them understand and fit into his system very, very simply. Yeah. But part of the challenge when you don't know what you don't know is, as players, because most former players that have played at a decent level have a healthy ego. And because we think we know what we know, and we don't know what we don't know, we want to tell all the players everything that we know about the game. And of course that isn't the recipe for success. They don't want to be dictated to. Yeah,
they don't want too much information either. That's the other dilemma. No, they can't retain it. Is that what it is? They can't retain it, or too much to ask?
It depends. People's learning styles are different. But if you bombard them, this is what I found, George. I'd won a championship at Altona. I went to Bulleen, and I won another championship in the old Victorian Premier League. Yep. But I got into the second season, and we were playing games, and things were happening, and the players were sort of looking across at me. And because they wanted me to solve the problem. And it finally dawned on me that if the players were looking to me for the solution all the time, I wasn't a very good coach.
Gotcha.
I hadn't got that message across.
You hadn't prepared them. You hadn't prepared them.
Create an environment where they can learn and understand. And for me, that's absolutely where the best coaches get to, when their players learn, know, and understand. Yeah, do we communicate with them? Yes, but the coach on the sideline isn't making decisions for the player on the pitch.
Fantastic stuff. Gary Cole, as always, whenever we ask you to not only entertain us but come and support us on FNR, you're tremendous. You give us as much as you can, and then some more, which is much appreciated. Can I just wish you a very good weekend? I hope you're going to go and watch some football this weekend, because you've been busy watching a lot of basketball.
I have, and I've just come off the end of two Socceroos games, one in Sydney and one.
Did you enjoy them? Did you enjoy them from your perspective?
Yeah, I did, George. It's a little bit disappointing with the size of the crowds, but we're midweek games and this, that, and the other. But I thought there was good atmospheres at both games, and we got to see perhaps some of the next generation of Australia's finest wearing that green and gold.
Would you have played the young? I was going to say, would you have loved to have seen the 17-year-old play? Just for 10 minutes, 15 minutes?
My only disappointment was that he didn't get on the pitch.
Yes.
Pokuah was sitting there saying, why didn't they play him? Why didn't they play him?
Yeah, don't know. So that would have been my only improvement on the whole thing. And how good was the Alexander Robertson story to have his
fabulous.
The third generation of Socceroos.
Well,
grandfather Alex.
For those like you, for example, who know the individuals and you know the story, it's even more poignant, isn't it? When you see the young one, stand up and show us that lovely discipline that he's learnt. Well, I suppose it's in the DNA, but he's now at City.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about Manchester City. Pep Guardiola is mentoring and monitoring his movements and giving him the confidence we need. And I know he didn't do too much in that first game, but I love the way he gathered himself, took some time, and then got the sort of flow of the game. And then before you knew it, 2 or 3 moves, and he's offered up a couple of key passes that opened up the defences.
Oh, absolutely.
That's quality. That's quality.
A great young player now, and he's going to get better. You know, the bit that I really love, George, is that he trains with Pep Guardiola on the first team at Manchester City, which is not in and of itself isn't a bad feat for a young player.
No.
And in that environment where everyone that he plays with is an international from an array of European and South American countries.
Yep.
And I believe Alexander would also qualify to play for England. And I've got a feeling his mum might be from South America somewhere.
Yes, I believe so.
I think he's got sort of 2 or 3 different options to play. But the option he chooses is the one where he pulls on the green and gold like his dad and his grandfather did.
Correct.
When he could be tempted in the environment he lives and trains and works in to be
elsewhere.
To want something elsewhere. So it's just it says an awful lot about the pride that pulling on that green and gold offers us all.
Fantastic stuff. And you've said it again as well as we could have expected anyone to tell us. Gary Cole, thank you very much for joining us and for giving us some insight into the challenges when a player makes up his mind that he wants to continue in the game, but no longer as a player, but as a coach or as a manager, and the pitfalls and some of the things that they have to endure and some of the things that they have to take on board and learn in their journey to become better at that part of the game. Gary Cole, thank you very much. Our next guest will be with us very, very shortly. You were going to say something, Gary?
Yeah, I was just going to thank you guys and encourage you to keep on spreading the gospel of the beautiful game. I love it.
Thank you, my friend. Excellent stuff. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, an opportunity to talk to someone who spent an awful lot of his time supporting one of the greats of the 74 Socceroos. I'm talking about the late Manfred Schaefer. We're going to be catching up with Joe, to me, it's important that we have access to people who knew Manfred Schaefer, people who loved him and cared for him. Joe Marigliani will be joining us very, very shortly, and we're thrilled to bits that he's taken the time to be able to make himself available. Thank you. Are you a professional optimised business? Time to look at Northern Peugeot Bandura to further professionalise your fleet with their updated commercial van range. The team at Northern Peugeot Bandura can help customise your fleet to your business needs. Stock arriving now, so secure your van and beat the rush before the end of financial year madness. Visit northernpeugeot.com.au or call 9119 9008. T&Cs apply.
Are you looking to change your destiny in life? Be your own boss? Start your own business? If you are, you need people who understand your needs and are committed to helping you make it happen. At DKP & Co Chartered Accountants, we are more than just accountants. We are business advisors, taxation consultants, and strategists that specialise in setting up businesses. We understand the client and give them the very best customised advice and strategies to achieve their goals. Visit our website, dkpco.com.au, or give us a call today on 03 9023 9370. Fast, proactive, personal. That's DKP & Co Chartered Accountants.
listening to the State of Our Football Nation on FNR. Looking forward to talking to our next guest. His name is Joe Marigliani. He's been a part of the support team around Manfred Schaefer for a lifetime. Joe, welcome to FNR, and thank you very much for making yourself available.
Thanks, George. Really appreciate.
Can I just say deepest sympathies to you and to all those that you know that have loved Manfred. And we're going to talk about him because for me, he played a key role at helping one of my clubs, Sydney Olympic. And by the way, for those of you watching us via the app, you'll see some of the images of the late superstar. He was the milkman, wasn't he, Joe?
That's what he was known as.
We've got Manfred. Look at that hard man. Gee, what a character. Tell us about for Pokuah, my co-anchor, who's only about 23
soon.
23. Doesn't remember the heyday, doesn't remember the great man. But what did he mean to you first? And how did you run into Manfred Schaefer? Where did it start? Where did your journey with Manfred, the milkman, start?
Look, George, my journey started to him as a child, actually, when I was growing up, and I was watching the great St. George teams playing against my great Apia team.
Oh, wow.
Always knew that, the late 60s, the early 60s, late 60s, the big battles at the old sports ground, which is now Allianz Stadium, I think it's called. Yeah. Those big battles in those nights and the amount of times the grand finals between my club Apia at the time and Manfred's. And then watching on ABC TV, the great game in Hong Kong when Jimmy Mackay scored that absolute screamer. And Manfred played out of his skin that night watching it on ABC. We all got behind the black and white TVs in those days.
That's right. But people forget that colour came to Australia in 75. There are young people. I've got two young people in the studio.
I will say, George, I've actually seen that clip of when colour first came to Australian television. I've actually seen that.
We've got two young people in the studio, one inside and one outside the studio, and they can't imagine, Joe, that television ever came in any other colour but full-on colour. Yeah?
Yeah, and
tell them what it was like to watch it in black and white.
Hey, listen, any opportunity to watch football on TV, and if it was in black and white, we really didn't care in those days.
Yeah.
You had the football that came in from England on the ball in those days.
Yeah, you didn't appreciate the colours, did you? No claret and blue, no red. No, even Newcastle, we didn't know they were black and white. They could have been red and white. But,
Yeah, that definitely. So in those days, that's how it was. And we, the nation actually fell in love with the 74 squad. It was just amazing. You remember, they finished and played in a World Cup that was only 16 teams. Not
Correct.
Like today.
Top 16.
There you got 32, and I think now it's going to 42 teams.
Yeah, 42 or 48.
Maybe 48.
Maybe 48, I think it's going to be. So,
and
now it's about the top 50.
These guys were part-timers.
Yeah.
They were mates. They were comrades. They fought for one another. I've been privileged through Manfred, to have met all these guys from 74 and to actually sit in a room with them was amazing.
Yeah.
So...
I want you to talk about, Ray Richards. I want you to talk about Peter Wilson, all those characters that really did rise above their station. And as you touched on, I mentioned the word milkman. Manfred Schaefer had a milk run. And that was his main job. And
every one of those players.
It was a bit of fun.
Yeah, every one of those players all had jobs. They're all part-timers. The world grasped Australia, and it was amazing the amount of exposure Australian football got at the time. How do these part-timers finish in the top 16 in the world?
Correct.
So we were fortunate enough to have them. And I was fortunate enough to work with the likes of Willie Wallace at the time, came out as a coach. And then from Willie, Peter Wilson was playing for Apia in 81. That's when I first started as a trainer.
Wow. What was he like? Come on, tell us. But everyone who doesn't know, doesn't appreciate Peter Wilson. Because Wilson, for me, is one of the not unsung heroes. He's one of these guys that didn't really care for the media, didn't care for the trappings. As far as he was concerned, he wanted his team, his mates, to get on and be successful. That's all he mattered. That's all he cared about, didn't he?
He sure did. They were a special bunch of guys. They still today, the camaraderie between them. But Peter back in 1981 took over from Willie Wallace when he got sacked at Apia.
Yep.
And we went on to win the Phillips Cup. And one of my greatest memories for working in Peter's backroom staff was before we went down to Melbourne for the Phillips Cup final, he presented me with a little trophy. And it was in green and gold, soccer trophy, to say thank you for helping him. But he had thanks Keg. And in those days, Keg was my nickname. And when he presented it to me, I said, Peter, my name's not Keg, it's Joe. He goes, what are you talking about? I thought it was Keg. And that's the type of bloke he was. And he believed in youth. He believed in promoting youth. And when he took over from Apia, he promoted a lot of young players. Rob DeSegli, Baz Giampolo was there, Tony Morcello, Genovese. All these young boys were starting to get a go at Apia. And we had a great team. We went on to win the Phillips Cup in Melbourne 2-1 against Heidelberg at Olympic Park, which was an amazing feat. We had the likes of Marshall Soper was in our team and all that. So
was this the Marshall Soper that loves to swing his arm whenever he scores a goal and run up the field? You'd see Marshall. Marshall would just swing his arm. It was like a windmill. Pokuah, you do your commentary on Paramount Plus. You'd have to create a new call for Marshall Soper because he would put that one arm up and it would be like this constant windmill, and he'd be running along the sideline saying like to the fans, chopper. Get a load of this.
Look,
am I wrong or am I right, Keg?
100% Joe, please. Marshall was well known for upsetting opposition. I'll never forget.
He upset everybody.
I'll never forget when we played Juventus at the Sydney Cricket Ground, and Cabrini went right after him because he hit Tacconi in goals, and Marshall went in for him. So 2 minutes later, Cabrini's gone for him, double footer, and slapped him. And Marshall was good at rolling over and putting on the big show.
Well, he was doing a Neymar before Neymar, correct?
Oh, mate, he was years ahead of him.
Pokuah thought that Neymar was original. No. He was doing a Soper.
Yes. And look, that year, Peter didn't continue on at Apia, and unfortunately, he walked away from the game back then.
He did.
And rightly so. And I'm a big supporter of Peter Wilson because his philosophies on the game and his promotion of youth was very important to him and close to his heart. So from that, the following year, I became a trainer looking after the visiting interstate teams. And in 82, halfway through 82, I think it was Doherty that got sacked at Sydney Olympic.
Yeah, Tommy Doherty, yep.
Yeah, and they brought Manfred in. So
that's right.
My master, which at the time was Spencer Thorpe, and myself were asked to go and assist Manfred. And that's where it all began.
So what was it like? What was that first meeting with Manfred Schaefer? Because here's a young man who was born in East Germany, as it was in those days, made his way to Australia and, learnt the caper, learnt to become a footballer here, not over there. He became a footballer here. So talk to us about it. What do you remember about those early days with Manfred?
He played for Blacktown City, believe it or not.
That's where he started. That's right. Yeah.
And Blacktown City has an absolute amazing young policy and development for young players. They've had it for
years,
yeah. So the first initial meeting was at Pratton Park in the change rooms.
Oh, Pratton Park, go on.
And let me tell you, I had to pinch myself. I'm walking into a change room and I didn't know which way to look. I'm walking into the change room to Manfred Schaefer.
Yeah.
And he goes, "Hey, you son, you ready to do some hard work?" And I'm going, oh, am I in for it?
Yeah.
And then around us, we had all the big names like, well, Peter, I knew for when we went to school, Peter Raskopoulos.
Yep.
But he was still a big name in those days.
Oh, yeah.
Peter Rasko, you had Catholis, you had Marshall was there.
So Peter Catholis and Peter Raskopoulos, there's two characters already. And still we needed more people in the dressing room. Give us some more. Give us some more names. Come on. Take me way back.
You had Gary Meyer in goals. I think Kenny Wilson was still there.
Tremendous contributor and custodian, Gary Meyer. 7 foot tall,
Yeah.
or so, it seemed like he was so thin, wasn't he?
An Olympic legend.
A Sydney Olympic legend. That's right.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, I mean, I walked into the change room and I thought, wow, Peter Catholis, Peter Rasko,
Gary Meyer,
and Marshall Soper.
Marshall Soper.
And I'm thinking to myself, wow, we've got our work cut out. And then all the young boys coming through, Jimmy Zeros. You had Nick Theodorakopoulos, Manny Spaniadakis as a young kid coming through.
Yes.
All these boys coming through, and you're thinking to yourself, wow, this is going to be one hell of a job. We ended up winning the Phillips Cup that year, and we continued on. We went on to win 4 years in a row. We won 2 Northern Division grand finals and 2 Phillips Cups. So it was quite successful. And
what made it successful, Joe? What sort of messaging did you keep hearing emanate from Manfred Schaefer? How would he treat the boys?
Manfred coached like he played. Manfred
Tough.
treated hard, work hard, ethics. And he built and pushed into those young guys work ethic. And they already had the natural ability.
Yes, they did.
He allowed them to express themselves with their natural ability.
So he did. He gave them the license to thrill, huh?
Oh yeah, that was paramount for him. That players in his teams had to express themselves, but they had to work hard and be disciplined.
Right.
And discipline was a big thing. And let me tell you, there was some times that guys wanted to test the waters.
Yep.
And I think they regret it today, testing the waters with the big man, because he didn't take a backward step.
Oh, I can imagine Peter Catholis going, no.
No, there was a few others as well. And I'll tell you, quite honestly, as much as Peter Raskopoulos, he was the casual general, I used to call him.
Yes, that's good.
He was casual.
Great description.
Casual, blasé, but he was just a natural. And it was funny, he supported Manfred all the way.
Yeah.
He pushed the players and listened to Manfred, and that's why we were successful. You had a captain who worked together with the coach to push the team, and they just worked hard. That every change room I've been in with Manfred, we work hard. It was just every night of the week. And then I went away from Manfred's change room in '86 after we won the Northern grand final, because Manfred went to Melbourne.
That's right, to Brunswick, Juventus, was it?
Yep, that's correct.
Yep.
He took over from Bobo Rivieri down there.
Oh.
And was quite successful down there as well. So he spent 4 years in Melbourne, and in that time, I went back to Apia and I was working with Phil Battalica.
Now, there's another great name, name of the Apia legacy crew, Battalico, tough as teak.
And you know, it was funny because...
And passionate.
Yeah. Phil and Manfred were very close, even though they played as opposing players.
Yeah.
They were very, very close.
There was a different camaraderie in those days, wasn't there?
Oh, yeah. On the field was on the field. Off the park, you were mates.
Great.
And then I went on because, obviously, Manfred was still in Melbourne, and Rally Rasic took over at Apia. The maestro.
The maestro, yeah.
Yeah, the boss was another level. And working with Rally that year that we were the Invincibles.
That's right.
I understood the 4 years earlier working under Manfred, where Manfred got his philosophy on football.
Gotcha.
The boss really emphasised a lot of things that Manfred used in those years, and that was another experience and a half. So I went on from there. I went to Marconi, and then I came back with Manfred in '90.
When you were at Marconi, was Labozetta president?
Yeah, Mr. Labozetta was president.
Yeah. See, Mr. Labozetta, there's respect from Joe.
That is true.
For a man who's, he worked for years and years ago. That's terrific. Yeah, go on.
No, Mr. Labozetta was our chairman. And so I did a couple of years with Marconi, and Manfred came back to Sydney. And we'd been in touch the whole time he was down in Melbourne. So every time Brunswick would come to Sydney, I would look after Brunswick Juventus for him, because they never used to travel with trainers in those days.
No, well done.
But being in his change rooms at those times, even with Brunswick Juventus, nothing changed. Same discipline, same work ethics. I knew my job. I knew exactly what Manfred wanted in his change room on match day, how to prepare the team, the whole lot. And he had his ways. And
can I just ask you just to help Pokuah here, because Pokuah is doing a lot of commentary these days in the W League, in the National Women's League, and
fantastic league, by the way.
And we're seeing some great talent coming through. But the question I have for you was all the work done through the week, and he didn't offer too much on the Sunday or the Saturday, wherever the games were being played? Was all the work done during the week in training? Do you know what I mean? And he lets them play on the Sunday. Look,
match preparation was done at training during the week.
That's it.
So he'd work really hard during the week.
Yep.
But on match days, there were certain things that had to be pointed out. And then there'd be individual discussions with players, and then there'd be a group discussion.
Gotcha.
So everyone in that change room had to know their job, from the gear steward all the way through to the physio, the players, and himself.
Fantastic.
So there's a lot of structure,
Joe,
that goes on.
Sorry to interrupt you. Is that what helped create a sense of unity within the club, and just that you're all heading towards one direction because everybody knew what they they had to do at all times?
Yeah, we used to call our change room the Commonwealth Bank safe. So nothing was allowed to go out of that change room, and if anything did go out of that change room, see you later.
Wow.
But that was the golden rule that I worked under with all the coaches I worked with. Anything got out of our change room, it wouldn't happen. I worked with Frank Farina, I've worked with Zoran Matic, Rally Rasic, you name it, Nick Theodorakopoulos,
and all of them, of course, and all of them, as you touched on, were disciples of either Rally or Manfred, or Zoran Matic, or Vedran Rožić, who was at Sydney, Croatia. Yeah. All wonderful messaging, but committed.
And look, like in 1990 when Manfred came back to Apia, he was he brought in the likes of like Rally had Darren Stewart.
Yes.
But Manfred promoted Darren Stewart to captain of the team, and then there were so many young players coming through then as well, like the Brendan Renault, Brad Maloney. These are guys that are legends of the game.
Yeah, Brad Maloney now coaching. He's coaching young Socceroos.
He's coaching the national team.
Yeah.
And then we went on to Sydney United. We coached at Sydney, Croatia. And you have a look at the players that came through. The Golden Boys, a lot of the Golden Boys came through, and Manfred actually gave them a go. Manfred was the one that promoted him when he took over. You got the likes of Tony Popovic, who's coaching at Melbourne Victory now.
Yep.
Ante Milicic, David Zrilic, Ante Moric, Željko Kalac.
They haven't done too badly, all these boys, yeah?
No, well, they were all playing youth when we took over at Sydney, Croatia. And they went on to represent Australia at the World Cup, the golden era.
You know, listening to you talk and take us through this journey and give us, paying tribute to the late Manfred Schaefer, who we lost now. Commiserations and our condolences to his family. And we believe there will be a funeral soon. There are a couple of things that they're addressing at the moment. The one thing you keep telling us...
I'll have an exclusive for you tonight for FNR Radio.
Okay, what is it? What is it?
In regards to Manfred and the funeral and some of the other things that are happening in the background. But as you can see, and these boys, you speak to some of these boys, John Paul Di Marini, another guy.
Yes.
Brendan Reno, Paul Souris, Eric Histradoulou, John Gibson. These are all players. Robbie Stanton, assistant coach at Sydney FC at the moment. So these boys have gone on. And it's funny, when I get together with a lot of these boys, they say to me that a lot of the philosophies that they've taken into their coaching now, it comes and stems back from when they worked under Manfred Schaefer.
How fantastic.
They said Manfred taught them a hell of a lot, and they loved his philosophies, and they use it today. So that just goes to show you the legacy the man has left behind within our game. And the fact that he promoted youth. He wasn't scared to give youth a go. If they were happy to work hard, he was happy to give them a go. And I think we don't see that today.
Yeah, we don't see enough of it today.
Yeah.
And a reminder yet again that he was known as the milkman. He actually did have a legitimate milk run, but like the milkman of the past, he always delivered, didn't he?
Yes.
Yeah?
Always delivered.
Always delivered.
Always delivered.
Always delivered.
Always bought.
Always. That vision that we showed early on, pardon me, of Manfred running around, it kept him fit. He was rock hard, but that work ethic that you speak of, and you knew how much work had to go in, and these are the early days before the sports scientists took us to another level. The teachings weren't that far off, were they, Joe?
No. He had the German way, which was hard, disciplined football. Yep. Believe me, he was a hard man. Look, I'll tell you, there's one story that lives in my mind.
Go for it.
And will always live in my mind about Manfred. 1986 Northern Grand Final, St. George Stadium against Sydney City, which we won that day. This ball comes over to the bench and it's coming up into the air. And all you see, Manfred goes, "Don't touch the ball." He stands up and he just puts his head back and he puts it right on the top of his head here, and he's knocked it over the other side of the ground. That's how powerful his head was. And it remains in my mind. I think there's vision of it on SBS, but he's headed this ball and it's just gone right over the other side to the riverside of St. George Stadium.
They say
that just goes to show you.
It's a great story, but I'm also reminded that Gerd Müller, the great, German superstar of the 74 World Cup, remembers very fondly the challenge that he had to cope with in the shape of Manfred Schaefer.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that. And the man is exceptional when you look at it and you say to yourself, Ferenc Beckenbauer.
Oh, yeah, Franz Beckenbauer, yeah. Und Kaiser.
he had ultimate respect for Manfred.
How fantastic.
He kept in touch with him ever since that World Cup.
Wow.
Every time that Manfred went to Germany, they always caught up, whether it was for coffee or for dinner, with his wife Hannah and Ferenc Beckenbauer. That's the kind of respect that Manfred had around the world. And you know something, George?
Go.
Since his passing away, it's been overwhelming, the pouring of sorrow and
the outpouring has been amazing. You're right.
It's like I just pinch myself and I go, it was just Manfred. It's not just Manfred.
No,
he's a legend.
Yeah,
and it's not just local football. around here, it's Australia-wide.
Correct.
The amount of people, even outside our code, which are acknowledging the
contribution,
the hard work and contribution he's put to our football is amazing.
Yeah, undeniable. And that's why we've taken the opportunity today. And thank you very much for the not only making yourself available, not only for providing us with some of the imagery that we saw at the beginning of the interview, but you said you've got something before you go. What is it you want to break on FNR? Come on.
First of all,
have you cleared this with Jack Zervos, by the way? Because Jack is the next best ambassador for the game in this country, and if only Football Australia and a bunch of other organisations grasped how valuable an asset Jack Zervos can be, we'd be in a lot better place, wouldn't you think, Joe?
Look, Jack Zervos, what can I say?
No, don't say too much because he'll start to blush, and it's not a good thing if he blushes.
I don't care if he blushes, really. He can. I'm not really worried. The man is a man, and he does so much behind the scenes.
Correct.
To try and promote our football, but not only that, as a human being, you don't meet people like him every day.
Well, he's got a business called Fantabulous.
I know about Fantabulous.
And it gives you an idea how his mind thinks. He wants things to be fabulous for everybody. And
he does.
And whether in the days of his days when he was playing rugby league, God forbid we let him play rugby league. Jack was fearsome then.
Selfless.
Yeah, but also fearless. And he does it in business. He's done it throughout his entire career as a businessman. And here he is now. Still giving. And he's also one of those champions for Rally Rasic. And the role he plays there is fabulous. But he was enormously quick to get on the phone and tell me that we have work to do with paying homage to Manfred Schaefer.
Yeah. Look, the boss, as the boss says, he says his boys don't die. That's Rally. These boys, that 74 squad are his sons.
Yeah.
And the amount of respect that man has for his boys. And he says none of them die. They just move on to the next level.
The next platform. That's right.
But to get back to you about two bits of breaking news for you. Go on. The first one.
Cool would be happy.
The first one is the funeral date has been set.
Oh, wow.
And it's
okay.
April 21.
Okay.
People may say, why so long? There's a few logistical things that need to be put in place.
Okay.
And we need to have that time to prepare. I've been working very closely with Kim and Hannah.
Yes.
His wife and daughter, and Peter in London. So Peter needs to get out to Australia. And I'm working very much to make sure that their wishes are fulfilled.
Yes.
In how we farewell. Well, I don't say farewell. That's the wrong word. How we say see you later.
Yep.
Because sooner or later we will catch up again.
Absolutely.
And I believe in that. So how we say see you later to our great legend. The second thing is the other logistical part of this, and it's very important that we've heard about CTE.
Yes, the concussion.
The brain damage.
Yes, the disease.
From concussion.
Yep.
That may lead to dementia or be part of dementia.
Yes.
Well, Manfred and his family requested that his brain be donated to science.
Wow.
To research the possibility of him having CTE, to bring awareness to all footballers.
Yes.
In particular our code, but all the other codes as well.
And to help and protect those that are playing the game in the future. Yeah, the next generation.
That's correct. So that's in a nutshell why it's going to take so long for the thing. But let me assure you, this is the first time the family, and I asked him today if it was okay for me to make that announcement on FNR and to you, George, and your program, because you do a hell of a lot for football in this country through your program on a weekly basis. So I thought it was fitting that it was brought up here, and as well as your association with Manfred over the years.
Mate, we're most appreciative. We thank you very, very much. And to all the football family right across the world, as we know, the beauty of what they call streaming radio means we don't have any boundaries. It's a bit like the legacy of Manfred Schaefer. There were no boundaries. So our signal goes around the world and across Australia. So to all those lovers and football fans who want to know more about Manfred Schaefer, it's now been confirmed that April 21 will be the funeral, and the reasons for that have been provided by Joe. And Joe Marigliani, thank you very, very much for, the time and for all the support that you've provided today and the stories that you've given us access to in paying tribute to a one-of-a-kind milkman who just gave his all at every level of whatever endeavour he was involved in, whether it's his morning runs, whether he's coaching and his family. Thank you very much, Joe.
Well, George, on behalf of Hannah, his wife, his son Peter and Kim, they would like to thank you and your show for putting this on, acknowledging Manfred and remembering Manfred in your program. They sincerely would like to thank you and all the listeners and Pokuah, yourself, for assisting in putting this program together. And good luck with the Women's League as well, Pokuah.
Thank you.
There you go. Joe's not letting go anybody. Thank you very much, Joe. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, George. Take care.
All the very, very best. Terrific stuff. There you go. We've exceeded our time limit, but you're going to find a way to fit us in. Until next week, Miss Pokuah, good luck. Good luck with your commentary this week. Which game are you doing?
Western United taking on Western Sydney Wanderers. They could get the Premier's plate, but we'll see how unlikely. But we'll see how it goes.
Well, you've been backing them all year.
I have
to do the unbelievable.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter. They've had a great season either way.
Absolutely.
So it's all right.
Thank you very much. Until next week. You're listening to the State of Our Football Nation on FNR.